Hello, this is Crafty Sue and your No Rules Art. And a lot of people wonder what's the difference between a traditional artist and someone who just goes for it. You know, what's the difference between a Bob Ross and a traditional artist? Time is the biggest factor, and the overabundance of detail that makes that time take forever. I watched a video just a little while ago. It was a beautiful painting, but he's a traditional artist, and he spent so much time on the sky. He spent over 45 minutes just on the sky and adding all these little tiny brush strokes and this and that, to give it that, I guess the 3D look. I don't know what he was aiming for. So I'm going to show you the difference and how much easier it is. And I'm going to reposition the camera, and I'm going to show you. I've got two little pieces of watercolor paper. It's 140-pound paper, which is great for acrylic or for watercolor. And we're going to use acrylics, and I'm just going to do a basic sky. I'm going to do one with the traditional, the way this gentleman was doing. And the main difference between traditional and what I call modern art, modern art technique, or some people call it the Bob Ross method, which actually William Alexander started it, is that you use bigger brushes, number one. And number two, you don't wait for the paint to dry. You just go with the flow, where the others seems like there's a lot of mental planning out in the brain. And that's what I was watching with this gentleman on TV just a little while ago. And I had to keep fast forwarding it because I started out as a traditional artist, and some of my stuff still is, but I don't spend a lot of, I call it tedious time, with brush strokes. It just doesn't make sense. I want to get my painting on there. It flows out, and I got to get it on the paper. So let's do, what I'm going to do is I'll start out with a so-called traditional sky on, it'll be my left, your right, and then I call it the quicker method or the modern method on the right hand side. So I'm going to reposition the camera for you so that you can see the paper as I'm doing this. Okay. So I've got, this one is going to be for the traditional artist style, and this will be modern. So traditional style is you have a lot of drawing in between, which I don't get. I have a plastic tray for my acrylic paints because once it's dry, it's waterproof. So I'm going to cover up the modern with the paint tray. And I noticed that the traditional method, what I remember when I first started out, was you put out a little bit of paint. Because it's water-based, it does dry. The different shades that you might use, your blues and whites. And I've got a phthalo blue, and then this is that's the phthalo blue. And then this is what I call the primary blue, which is I would call it regular crayon blue. And then, of course, your white. Now, when you add white to phthalo blue, if you add enough of it, it becomes like a gray color. Okay, so in traditional art, you would use these. They have what's called a blender brush. I don't have mine out here. It actually looks like a makeup brush, and but they would use brushes that are small in width. There's a 1/2-inch square tip, which is used a lot, and then there's your detail brush. Then there's this little number 4 brush. This is for making details, and I'll show you how a traditional sky technically is done. A lot of times you would start out with the light parts and then come dark, and in fact with oils you do the opposite. So, and that's why the drying time. So if we're going to do this like they did for traditional, you would take your lightest color, your white, and wherever you want clouds, you would put clouds. You would put this white. You can't really see where this is on here, but I have a, kind of a visual where I want my cloud line to be. And put one over here, maybe a little. Now you want to add just a little bit of water so that it smooths out, okay? This is what gets me about traditional art, but anyway. You don't want your paintbrush real wet. You just want just enough damp. If your paint drips down, you've got too much water on it. So just the tip of it, and then go to the next color, the medium shade blue. And then you put that where you want it. I'm going to use a fan brush or my blending brush. I'll put that in there, and then take the darkest blue, and it goes up in the corners. The further away, the darker it is, that sort of thing. And you put that in there to really give you that. And you say the white has disappeared on here. So then you would take your blending brush, and I'm going to use a fan brush to blend it, and you're just blending it around in circles while it's still kind of wet. And you start from the white and go out. And this is the part where you let it dry. So you let this stage of your sky dry. So this is what you get. This is traditional art. It goes like this. Now let's go over to modern method. Modern methods is I use a little bit more water. I use the whiter brush. I'm going to clean this fan brush off because this is going to be my blender brush. You can use a fan brush for a blender brush, especially if it's got thick bristles like this one does. They're not thin, they're pretty thick. So you go over here, and this is how you choose to figure out what kind of method you want to actually do. This is drying over here, okay? And so this way, you start out dark and you go light. So you want a little bit more water to it. You start out with your darkest blue. And of course it's going to be, in the corners, because the darker part's always like further up, okay? And then you go to your, make sure it's got some water, and go to the medium blue, and you combine that in there, okay? And I'm just doing circles. I'm just doing circles, nothing fancy. If I think there's a spot that's not dark enough, I'm going to put that dark, paint it back in there so it's good and dark in spots that I want it to be dark, right? And here, I got a busy sky here, and a medium blue. And then I'm going to clean that brush out, completely clean it out. My paper is still wet. I'm taking most of the water out of it, put it in the white, and then I'm going to do my white circles wherever I want my clouds to be. And I can wipe it off, get some of that blue off, put some more white. I want some highlights on my clouds here. Okay. And some of them are going to have little dark spaces in them and that sort of thing. And if you want little highlighted edges, you just put that white right there on the edge where you want it to be, bold and stick out. Same way on this side. Okay, and then you take your dry brush, okay, and you pull it up, and you just fluff it. You just kind of fluff it up, pull it up, and then across. You can hypnotize it if you want. And you can put some dark areas in there. You know, it's just, and I'm just doing little circles to kind of blend out some more of the colors. And the sky's going to look different this way, but, you know, some people like to have just like that. And this one. And I'm not adding any water now. I've got these really neat looking kind of, and when you go and you pull it up like that, you take away your brush strokes. Okay, so this is just one kind of sky that, you know, could be. And that's modern method. Now this one is not done. So now we'll go back to this. What happens with this one is, now that it's basically dry, I need to have my 3 shades of blue. Actually, and I need to make a 4 shade of blue. Now, yeah, I don't have my palette knife out here to do, I don't think. Do I have it out here? I don't think so. Or do I? I did have it out here earlier. But, anyway. So, I just use the brush that I'm going to use. So, I'm going to take this little thing. This little, I think it's a number 4. Or no, this is actually a number 2. And I'm going to take some of the darkest blue from my palette and take some white. I'm going to mix that in so I get like an in-between blue shade. Okay? Actually, a lighter blue. And this is where it gets interesting, where you go in and you make these little marks with this brush, and you're just in little tiny spots, and then you go back and where you want it to stay white, you put little white marks in there. And as you can see, traditional is going to take longer because it's all about the extra detail. Now, some people, I used to have patience for it. I guess as you get older, you'll lose patience for it. But I want to put my highlights in where I want them. And, you know, some people will do teeny tiny little marks, like just like this. Just teeny tiny little spots of area. And you can have it with a lot of water, no water. Like, I don't think I have any water in this brush right now, because I like to use my acrylics kind of like oil. And then you would go to the next color, shade of blue, and put those spots where you would like for them to be. And they can be anywhere you want them. And kind of connect these little guys. You can kind of connect them and then do the next darker shade of blue. And maybe put a little indentation in one of them and have that connect there. Now this is if you want really specific kind of clouds, and you know, maybe you have a little dark rain cloud spot, you know, and just kind of throw it in there. And this is what I was watching for 40 minutes, almost 45 minutes, was these tiny little brush strokes to come up with clouds and a sky. And now you get to experience what I was watching. And he went and put these really dark spots in like after the fact, whereas I'm putting them in now. And so where they would kind of pop out. So we go like this, and take that matter of fact, I think he's still on my television over there, just kind of rambling on about this and that. And so I guess the point with this type of sky is to have it have more layers. And I'm just going to put some. I had the very least little bit of water on the brush to do this. So, I mean, and then after doing this part, well, there should be some, at least a little bit of water in there, I guess. And you go back into those areas with your blender brush and blend them out. Now, granted, it does give you more, layers. But then you have to let this dry so that then if you wanted to add like really specific highlights, and that's why I didn't add too much water to the brush. Clean that brush off. You can make it have, I call them cutouts, It's kind of like spots where the clouds have these little holes, and I'm like, you can do the same thing with dots. I mean, you could do a whole sky of dots. That's what Monet and Renoir, they had a very unique talent and way of showing, different parts of nature. And so this is kind of gives you that go back in here. And going through all the little nuances here, the different shades of blue and white, and blending it out. So you just take the blending brush. It literally looks like a makeup brush. I'll have to bring them out one day. So this is traditional art to do a sky is more detailed and more involved. You're using several different kinds of brushes. And so you end up with this in the old traditional style. Now this can be enhanced even so by just using the fan brush and a little bit of water. Go into that white. And just twist it around. And then one of these little like thunderhead clouds coming in there. And then just smooth it out. Pull it up, fluff it up, give it a little wispy look. And that's, of course, this is acrylic, so it's drying fairly quickly. And you can get all the paint out of it. Now there's one big old cloud in the corner with all those dark undertones underneath it. And it's a different kind of sky, but this one took half the time than this one. Traditional. This is traditional, and this is modern. So whichever style you prefer. So these are the two skies. I noticed also that there's a big difference in doing backgrounds. The one thing that stayed constant was the backgrounds are done with, lighter shades and then darker coming forward. That didn't change. The sky, he did it completely different. So if I wanted to put a mountain in here with the modern way, I would just go take my darkest color, and I already see where a mountain is in this picture. It's just like popped out all by itself. And it comes around this way. Just one little peak back here. No, I did not put any water on there. I should have put a little bit of water on there. But anyway. So I could outline it. See, and I'm doing this just like that. It's like so simple. And the shadow side of it, because this is acrylic, this is not oil. So the back side of it, determining where my light source is going to have a dark on the back side. And then to put the highlighting, just put some white on that fan brush, pull it that way. Here's another peak here, doing here. And there really isn't much here, except a little hill kind of thing. And then if I wanted to make it like smoky or misty, you just take that same paint in that paintbrush, and you want it a little watered down for this way, and you just swirl it at the base. Okay, just like that, and then pull it up, let it do its thing. And while you're pulling it up, it will give you a little, especially with this fan brush, it gives you a little tree line at the base. So that's already done for you. And then as you come forward, that's where you put your little shoreline. Use a little bit of the white with a dark blue, and just kind of make sure it's straight. And can see the mist. So, then you just take the edge of your fan brush with that light color and just pull them up out of it. And so you can double load a fan brush with, blue and white and give it that shadow side. And that way now you have, three-dimensional. You can add more white in little spots where you figure the snow's falling harder. And then that's with modern day. You can do that. That's very simple. It's just two little peaks, beautiful sky. Down in the foreground, you can do water, whatever you want to do. Now, traditional is a little different story. You're not going to use this big brush. You're going to use a small brush, I don't have a 2 up here, I have a 4. But I'm going to use this one. I think this is a 6 or an 8. But anyway, traditional art would be to make a tree line with the bristles being moist. You don't want them soaking wet. And then you take your lightest shade and you make just little tick marks all the way across. All the way across. A part of this I'm going to cover up with a mountain, but like this. I'm just going to put one peak in the center here. Or maybe 2. I don't know. Anyway, so you're doing these tiny little marks all the way across. And to give it that, distant feel. So you gotta make it like almost like a grayish blue with a lot of white. So it's a lot of brush strokes. Traditional art is a lot of brush strokes because it's more realism in that sense. So I want to do 2 peaks for this one. And so you want some water on the brush, and you want to take and carve out where you want your peaks to be. And those in. And this one's going to come across there. And it's okay if you're going over some of the paint below. It'll be for it. And so we're taking that medium blue and coming across. I'm gonna put one small one over here. Just have fun. And wherever you want your snow spots to be. Now the brush that they use typically is this little tiny one. Well, not exactly. This is a 2. It would be a 4. And you'd grab your paint and you go and you very specifically put it in here. Okay. And mark it out like that. And then any trees that you covered up, well, of course, we're going to put those back in. This is the gray mist that goes on the bottom. So, and then to do your shadows, take the same little brush and go to the back side and grab a little bit of white with the dark, and that gives it that rocky marbled look. There's a lot of brush strokes involved, you can see. And then this one, you can see it's kind of funny shaped. And then we're going to blend out that paint just by using the brush. And you can see that blue becomes like a gray color. And now if this was real wet with the acrylic, you'd have to wait till it dries and go and put in these highlights, which is traditional art. That's exactly how they did. They would come in later and do the highlights. And you need a variation of colors, different shades. Real dark on this side. And can't see the edging of that one, so I gotta put that in there. Can't see the highlight on this guy. A little bit of water. And I'm going to put those distant trees in there with this gray color at the foothills. And the yellow blue with some white and the right combination makes actually a great color. And it lends for a really nice, and just circle it. So there's a good bit of water in this to do this. The mist look. And then okay, so this is traditional, and this is more of the modern style. So it depends on what you like to do. If you want to do a ton of brush strokes, go for traditional. Or you can do the more modern method, which is what I like and prefer. The main difference in traditional is when you do trees. I haven't done any background in here, but when you do a tree, your paint is watered down, and you do a line these are for trees in the background, and so you have these teeny tiny little lines, okay, and then you have to wait for that part to dry, and then you put in these little branches, per se, for each individual tree, these little tiny branches. And then once those are dry, once those little guys are dry, I don't even know if you can see those, then you go back and you put in the illusion of leaves, just like, and you put them on those branches. See, it's more like a realistic version, and you're just putting little, dabs on here. And since these trees are far away, you have to do little highlights to kind of make them not so dark. Of course, now if you were, you would put a bigger tree in front. So these are far away. So a bigger tree would be in front, and it would cover those up, and they would be faded out, and the tree in the front would be darker. But you wouldn't use this little brush. You would use this for the branches, yes. But to do the actual tree, you would be putting in this big trunk. Needs a little bit of water. Let's say it reaches up off the page. Okay, so you would do that. And the other thing with traditional painting is a lot of times you would use the tiny brushes to fill in the holes in the background instead of just doing the whole background and then painting on top of it. So that's the main difference, is that then you would take this big tree here and you would put, branches on it. Like this, and then you come back and you put your leaves on those branches. I'm using the wrong brush for that. You would use the corner of this 3/4 inch brush. You would use the corner of it and just go along the branches and put those leaves on there. And now you can't even see the trees behind it, but that's basically what you would do. That's traditional art, you would do that. And then go in and fill in little details, like you wanted water to be here. The water comes down this way. It's not like what you're used to. And you would have, your different shades of blue for the water. Okay. And where it's going to be, it comes up to this, that would be the shoreline. So a lot of people wonder, well, what's the difference between traditional and the way, everybody else paints? And, of course, the first name that pops up, everybody says Bob Ross. And I don't know what exactly they call them. It's a wet-on-wet method is what they call it. And so this is just acrylic paints being used for this. And when you do reflections in the water with this kind of thing, it's completely different, because you let this dry, then you paint a layer to show that there's a reflection in the water. That's how you do it. So I would have to wait till this dries and then come back with the small brush and go and put a darker value in there So this would be where filling in behind this tree like this, which can be rather tedious. And then fade it out to the water's edge. And then, put that in there. That's literally. And then to put any kind of bushes or grassy area, this would have to be dry. And then that would go on top. So anyway, I thought I would show you traditional versus modern technique, and it just depends on which one you want to spend them. If you want to spend time with it, if you have like a case of OCD and you just gotta have a lot of detail and you're not happy without it, then by all means just go for it. I mean, you could put in here, this is kind of dry, like a drop off where the water comes over the edge, and just a dry brush, just like that, and give it a little place to splash into, just like that. And I mean, this is where you would say there's a rock shelf up under the water, and it just comes right over it. You can go, it just happens to pull that way. So we'll take, and I'm using a dry brush with a little bit of white on it, just to pull it over top of that dark line, because that's where it's spilling over. And go like that. Put a little bit of water in here to smooth that out some. It's going to have a little bit of a darker where it's deeper. This is all little things. This is all solid blue and white, mountains in the background. I need a little bit of a punch there. Punch a nice dark white on that one. And that way you can see it better. But this was predominantly traditional style painting. And just put a little bit of more of a separation between them, including back there. And if you like this version, cool. And go with traditional if you want. I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm really happy with the way the little spillover turned out. And with acrylics, keep your brushes clean. Um, I have 2 containers of water. One is clean, one is for dirty. So I clean the brush off in the dirty water, take a towel, get all that paint out of it, and then put it in the clean water to make sure it's all out of there. Because there's nothing more frustrating than having a paintbrush that's got dried up acrylic paint in it. So I'll show you what this one turned out to be. I might change the way I do my skies for a little while. I don't know. But I like to really, experiment with different combination of techniques. And so let's get that paint out of there, because I plan on doing another one on a black canvas. And 2 shades of blue and white. And that was all there is. And so this way you can kind of see how easy it is to do something really simple and small. It's good practice. I highly recommend getting the watercolor pad that has the size paper on. I think it's 6x9. Or is it 5x8? Be 5x8. But it's a great way to practice your sky. Just do sky. Then just do reflections in the water. Just do trees. But this is traditional. And of course I didn't do. And then this is modern. So let me do the same thing on here. See if I can do the same similar thing, only using the modern brushes. Okay, I'm going to do, so for that I'm going to need a little more paint on my palette. Yellow, blue, and primary blue, and some white. I don't mind painting, where it's like all one value of shades of blue. I think sometimes it's more fun. And like that. And so I need to put in my little trees in the distance. Take a little bit of water. And I'm going to use the lighter blue and some white. And I'm not using a palette knife. I'm just using my brush. And I'm going to go put those guys right across there. Put it right across the bottom. And we'll put the trees on the other side. And we'll make this one the reverse. And then do the little misty look below. Like that. Need a little bit more marbling on the back side of my. These guys need to have a little more character. Okay, and so this guy is going to be in front of the big one. That. And some see I'm still using a fan brush. And put some white cap on there. This one could even run down to like a glacier. Which I think is fun. And now to do the, I could do this whole thing with a paintbrush. A fan brush. That's the other beauty about, you don't have to do a whole bunch of different kinds of brushes to get the look that you want. And let me take these guys out, because this is the one I need now. So I can do my foreground. And use a 3/4 inch brush. And go all the way down the little bit of water. Oh, that was a little bit more than I wanted. That's a great thing about paper towels. Okay. So what I'm going to do, sometimes you can even use a sponge. Like I've got these little sponges and it can pull up the excess liquid. Lightens it up a little bit. That's okay. And water can have a deep spot in it. This one does. Okay, and I've already got my shoreline. I didn't even have to do anything. I just took the lighter blue up to it and down to this. Okay. And then we'll go over here and I'm going to do my waterfall or spillway second. I'm going to take the fan brush and I'm going to put it in the darkest color, and I'm going to go, well, let's see, we wanted to put some in the distance, didn't we? Okay, so we need a lighter one. I want one to actually show, so we'll do like that, and right there, and then just take the corner to put the leaves on them. I don't need to make branches, I just need to put the leaves on them. Dun, 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 dun. A little bit. There we go. There's got to be a thinner paint to go on there. Okay, so they just kind of look like just like that. And we're not going to be able to see these once I get that big tree in there, but anyway. Okay, now, big tree. Big tree goes darkest color, and it goes like this, straight down, all the way. Okay, and then we're going to do the branches for it. And it's just a corner of the fan brush, and do back and forth. I'm gonna smack it on there so you can see the branches. Okay, and then they're gonna get a little bit of highlight. And down to the water here. I'm going to cut that off there because that's going to be my reflection. Like that. A little bit more. And a little bit of highlights on the little tree behind. Okay. And on this one, the background was already there for that tree trunk, so I didn't have to fill it in with a brush at all. So A little bit of water. And put the little bank below. Where it comes down to the water. And the reflections here. This way you can see the separation of where the tree is growing. And give it some little grassy growth underneath. I'm taking the fan brush and hitting it this way and then twisting the stem up. And I'm going to put in my little spillway. So let's see. This one's actually going to have two spots because I see them. So I put in the dark part like that. And then I'm going to put the white paint in it and start above that blue line and pull down. So you can still see the blue below or underneath. And there's always a little froth at the base of something like that. And then there's another one. This one has a double fall. So when I use the acrylic paint to do this, it's on a dry brush. And if I take away my spot that had the dark blue for the rocky ledge or whatever, then I just take the edge of it in the paint and I put it back in there. And it's going to come across this way. I'm using the point of the fan brush to get around those little white lines. And I'm putting white paint on both sides of the brush. And I'm going to take this, make some really distinct little foam splashing up at the bottom. Just like this. That's just how I like to see it. And then We should have a rock here. There we go. That actually turned out well. We'll just put the and these are gonna be like little growth or something. Makes for a nice little wintry kind of scene on top of the rock. Perfect. So this is the modern version. I'm gonna put two little waterfalls. So it's up to you. Traditional or modern? Modern. Traditional. Less brush strokes. More brush strokes. God bless and have fun painting.